So I was asked to do with backup goaltenders the same thing I did with starters last night. Backups are tricky. Backups are tricky because who is or isn't a backup depends on the night of the week. But with Anaheim, we've got Bernier, who I think has been decent. Bernier has kind of resurrected his career. Arizona fans have been clear to me they do not like Domingue. I know Domingue was unknown before he hit the NHL, and he is likely on his way out at the end of the year. But he is not the only backup who's in trouble. Dobin is definitely in trouble. The asterisks mean look out. Um, Interesting story coming out of Buffalo is Nilsson. Nilsson, you could argue Nilsson's outplayed Lehner. I think you'd be wrong personally. I think Lehner's the better goalie, but it can be argued Nilsson's been better. Speaking of goaltending situations in that vein, you got one in Calgary. And then you've got one in Carolina where clearly Lack is not very likely to return to the team next year. Based on his relationship with Coach Bill Peters, organization isn't really stepping up to defend him at all. I can't see Lack being back. Chicago has Darling. Not for long because they have to protect Crawford. They'd be crazy not to protect Crawford. Darling is most likely Vegas bound and would be a fantastic starter for them. So when a few people said, "What about Scott Darling?" Darling's a backup. He's probably one of the best He is one of the best backups. You could argue he's the best. You could. And this is the backup who's going to be the starter next year for Colorado in Pickard, and I like Pickard. I'm actually a big fan of Pickard. As I butcher the name, Corpusalo, the backup for Columbus, he very well could be taken by Vegas next year as well, and he'd be good. They've got Forsberg as the number 3 guy. He's a pretty good goaltender as well. Dallas doesn't have a backup. Detroit, technically, it's Howard when he's healthy, but Careau has been okay. Boston chased him tonight. It's not the first time he's been chased. I think he's more likely to have a ceiling as an AHL starter, but there's no way to tell. Brossoit. Edmonton is going to be looking at upgrading from Brossoit, I believe, anyways. Florida right now, their backup's Berra, while Luongo's hurt. When Luongo's in, he's the backup. Berra's not good enough. Luongo is a good backup. He's solid. And again, people are going to be like, why are you saying Reimer's a starter? Reimer was starting the majority of the games before Luongo got hurt. Reimer has outplayed Luongo. In Florida, James Reimer is the starting goaltender. And of course, LA decided to go out and get Bishop. Bishop's not staying. Bishop's there as insurance in case they make the playoffs and Quick gets hurt. Montreal has a pure backup in Montoya. Montoya is good at what he does. He's not tremendous. If he's a great goaltender, he wouldn't be a backup, but he's good as a backup. I think Jersey's been happy with Kincaid. So we're down to Jersey, which means I skipped Nashville. Which is funny because UC Saros in Nashville has outplayed Rene at points this season, basically whenever he started. I like UC Saros a lot, and I think he's got a strong future in the NHL. Now, on the island right now, of course, Halak is out there, but Berube's the backup right now. I'm not sold on Berube personally. I'm not sure what the Islanders see in Berube. I'm not sure what potential they see. Personally, I don't see it. I know that's just me. Hey, look, it's another goalie that Vegas may really, really want. Antti Ranta. I've liked Ranta since he was in Chicago. Chicago's become a goaltending factory of sorts, and Ranta is a really good example of that. He is a fantastic goaltender, and again, the idea of Ranta and Darling being the goaltending tandem for Vegas, interesting. And this is why when people mention, well, what about Varlamov or Fleury or Bishop? Who would you rather have? Ranta and Darling as your backup or as your goaltenders? Or Bishop and Fleury or Bishop or Fleury? You're getting both youth and reasonably priced contracts with Darling and Ranta. Ottawa, one of the stories of the year is Mike Condon. He's been fantastic. Philly, less fantastic. Michael Neuwirth, and he was signed to an extension only in the idea that he might be an attractive option for an expansion draft. He's not an attractive option for an expansion draft at all. Pittsburgh, of course, famously right now, Fleury is seen as, oh, he could, if he waives his no trade or whatever to get exposed or whatever happens. I honestly think Fleury's going to end up staying in Pittsburgh. I think there's much to do about nothing because Ronta, Darling, those to me are the guys that Vegas is going to be after. Ronta and Darling. Fleury wouldn't appeal to an expansion team because he's too old. He's got too many miles on him. St. Louis, Carter Hutton. I've been a big fan of Carter Hutton for a long time. San Jose has Dell. Dell's been surprisingly solid for them. I cannot find any reason not to like Dell right now. And I'll get into something specific on these goaltenders after I'm done with this list. Tampa has the surprisingly solid Budai. Toronto has the steal of the year, I think, in McElhinney. It's fantastic. Vancouver has Markstrom, but Bachman in limited action for the Canucks has been good, and he's put up better numbers in the American Hockey League than Demko. So if the Canucks move on from Miller, don't be surprised if Bachman gets a shot at the backup job because he has an NHL track record. He's not a bad goaltender, and I'm not sure how he got cast aside. Now, you want to talk about a goaltender that potentially goes to an expansion team, Grubauer. All Grubauer's done in Washington has proved me right this year. I talked about how much I like Grubauer. I had people tell me that I was crazy, that Grubauer was facing crappy shots in Washington and he wasn't a very good goaltender. It's just he was protected by a really solid defense. He's been really good. And for Winnipeg, where do you start with Hutchinson or Pavlich? This is not good enough. Not at all. It's not. So, which of these goaltenders on this board do I think are going to be starters? Either now, like this year at some point, or in the near future. I could see Nilsson if a team takes a shot on him. I don't think they will, but I could see Nilsson being the guy that gets it. Bernier's run his course. I don't think Bernier gets another shot. Pickard, I think Colorado goes with him next year. Bishop will get a shot at being a starter again. Saros will get the shot in Nashville as soon as next season. I think Ronta's good enough, and I think he'll get that shot. Darling will get that shot as well. Fleury can. He won't for an expansion team, I don't think. I don't think he'll get the shot in Pittsburgh again unless Murray gets hurt. I'm not going to say Budai because Budai's had one really good year, and it's tempting to be romantically attracted to that one year and say, oh, he's so adequate and good as an NHL goaltender. But it was 1 year, and you can't base a career on one season. I think he'll be a backup next year, and I think that's it. Markstrom has starter potential, and I'm sure there are Canuck fans who are really torn on this. Jacob Markstrom however it's pronounced this week. It was Jakob Markstrom and then became Jacob Markstrom somewhere. So Jacob Markstrom has the potential, but the numbers haven't borne it out yet. He hasn't been able to play consistently. I had this argument with somebody last year at work where I said I would love for Markstrom to keep playing like he plays in his good games, but when he has a bad game, wow, is it a stinker. And those games that are stinkers that remind you of Martin Brochu and Andre Rasico and some of the lesser lights in the NHL history books, it's hard to look at him and go, that's a starter, though. Is he going to be a starter? Probably. With the money that Vancouver's got him signed to starting next year, he'll get his shot. Whether or not he's good enough, it's up to him to make that call. Washington's got Grubauer. He absolutely is good enough to be a starter. The guys who really have the potential to be the starters are prospects. And there are some guys on the board here, so let's take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I came up with 10 guys who are currently not starters who I believe have the potential to be starters in the NHL. So my challenge to you, tell me which of the backups you think is going to be a starter, is good enough to be a starter, and let me know who you think I'm wrong about. I have no problem with being proven wrong on any of these guys. And let me know what you guys think. I did not say Johnson is starter material based on the fact that I think he's just one of the best backups in the league. And I think if you put him in for too many games, I think he starts to run into trouble with consistency. But would I want him as a backup for 2 years? Yeah. Would I want him as a starter? No. If I have him as my starter, I'm probably in trouble and I'm likely going to miss the playoffs. Anyways, thanks for watching. This is fun stuff to go over. You guys let me know in the comments below what other positions you'd like to see me go over. I mean, I can go over number one defenseman. I could go over number one centers, number two centers, checking centers. A lot of people talk about Selke Trophy. I mean, I could draw something up on the board here with where I think the Selke Trophy is lying right now. I think it's between Bergeron and Kessler at the halfway mark of the season. I said, oh, Kessler, Kessler, Kessler. Right now, I'd be leaning towards Bergeron simply because the Bruins have really turned it around, and Bergeron's been a major part of that, and he is starting to show once again why he is a perennial Selke candidate. Of course, if Datsuk was still in the league, he'd probably still be in the running for it as well. Again, just let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, because only here will you see 95 different jerseys, and 9 times out of 10 the hat will not match the jersey, and it's up to you guys to decide if I'm sending a message through my videos or whatever. It's cool. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.